Here come the madcap Snow Brothers. Well, no, actually. Being as it is a Game Boy game, Tom has mysteriously vanished in King Scorch's Ice Palace. More chilling news. That's the manual's pun, not mine. The sun is burning out. Now it's up to Nick to rescue his brother and save the heart of the sun. Snow Bros. Jr. plays virtually the same as the NES version, with only a tiny handful of gameplay elements taken away. There are 50 floors to this palace, with a boss every 10 floors. You play as Nick the Snowman, whose goal on each floor is to wipe out all the enemies by encasing them in a snowball and then punting them before they break out. If it sounds an awful lot like Bubble Bobble, that's because it is. You jump with A and throw little snowballs with B. You fire an infinite barrage of snow clods at the enemy. Each one takes 4 or 5 to completely encase them. You can stall them with 1 or 2, which also makes them temporarily harmless, but to be able to kick them, you need to fully trap them. The cool feature about this comes when you kick the ball. They will fly from side to side across the level and drop down through holes, taking out other enemies along the way, before ultimately splattering on a wall. You gain a small points bonus for each wall it rebounds off. It's possible to clear whole stages out by doing this, which is incredibly gratifying, and each enemy you run down gives a little bonus sweet or potion, so it's worth trying to do. You can hit a trapped enemy from underneath to knock it up to a higher level, meaning you can potentially kick an enemy from the very top and hit all the others on a level. If you manage to clear out all the monsters in one shot, these dollar bills float down from the top, giving a ton of points. Another inventive little mechanic that comes along with this is Nick can hitch a ride with these fast-moving snowballs if he stands in the way of it. It doesn't hurt you, and you can jump out of the ball at any time using A, but it's a cool and occasionally useful way to move about the level. I briefly mentioned the potions that drop when you chain hit enemies. They're actually hot sauce. I'm not going to get into the judgment of a man with a largely frozen constitution to eat something that would exacerbate his melting. What these do is increase the size of your projectiles, meaning fewer are needed to encase the enemies. There's also one that speeds you up. Once, a bottle turned the character into a massive floating version of himself. I assume this allows you to deal instant damage, but seeing as how I've only seen it one time after I cleared the level out already, I can't be certain. The levels are mostly one screen, and there's no screen wrapping like in other games of this style, until the later levels. I adore the sprite animations. Rather than just jumping like all other platforming mascots, Nick does a kind of parkour front flip thing. It doesn't affect the movement in any way that you wouldn't expect, but it looks nice. If you partially trap an enemy but they then break out, they'll shake off the cold and snow with a stunned shiver. Again, it doesn't mean much, but it's a cute little touch. There are lots of different enemies, some of which fire at you, from birds to monkeys to these goblin-like creatures. They all have slightly different movements, but are all killed in the same way. The bosses are inventive, but the general principle is that you ball up the little critters that they spew out at you, and then pelt them back at the big guy. The controls are perfect, and the difficulty curve is exactly right. I like that the snow you throw kind of follows gravity a little. It'll go along horizontally for a bit, but then drop downwards. Pay attention to this because if you position yourself just right, you can actually trap enemies patrolling a lower level than you. Useful in a pinch. This game has become more sought after in the past few years. It's going for a pretty penny. Ever more so the more people realise how great it is. It's not nearly at the astronomically ridiculous height of the NES cartridge yet, and as this version is probably better anyway, I certainly would buy Snow Bros. Jr. if you ever get the chance. It's one of those that I wouldn't mind spending a little more on, because it's so addictive. The controls and gameplay fit the console perfectly. You can play it in short bursts, it uses the entirety of the small screen. The cutscenes tell the story of the war after every boss, and they look bloody gorgeous. This is one that you need, I would say. Do I like this better than Bubble Bobble? I think I actually do. So good. Thanks so much for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts on the game down below, and if you can spare a second, give the review a quick thumbs up, it really helps out. Subscribe to the Portable Power Podcast for a new Game Boy review every day from Monday to Friday. Or alternately, new episodes of the podcast drop every Saturday and Sunday on whichever platform you get your pods. See you later on.